Hey there! Thanks for joining us today. Amy Balsters of the Floral Coach is going to be talking more about mindset and self-care. Did you guys watch our video that we posted yesterday? It's amazing. You may be teaching your own children or, your own friends talking about self-fulfilling prophecies, limiting beliefs, and the importance of having a positive mindset. But are you listening to yourself? Let's dive into these important topics in addition to the importance of self-care. This is going to be a really great episode, guys, that I think might help you put together your vision board for 2022. So come on in, say hello, let us know where you are from, and make sure you post your comments and questions. We love seeing those, and we will answer those as we go. Let me bring on Amy, and we're going to get started. Hey, girl.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm so good, and I have gotten to majorly practice what I preach today already. It's amazing how there's no accidents. I don't believe there's accidents, and it's funny how this morning's conversations I've had with a colleague and with parenting, it's just bringing right up to the front and center of what we're going to talk about today. Yeah, so
it really does. I've been dealing some things with like my older daughter too, and like I was like thinking about your video, like because I'm like kind of beating myself up, even though it's not really my fault, And so I just think like whether it's for business, personal, just personal relationships, I think all of this is really, really important. So I'm really excited to dive into this with you. And I don't think we need to do the introduction. If you guys don't know who Amy is, make sure you watch our talk that was just a couple of weeks ago, right? And so check that out, our last live. Amy is our final 2021 Mayesh Design Star. And, I was really excited to have you as our last Design Star for the year, just for a whole bunch of reasons. But one of them just being about how you're a wonderful proponent for self-care and having a positive mindset. It is something that you do talk about and you're very passionate about. And we just thought, what a great way to end the year, and have our community thinking about this, kind of having it in their mind, to wrap up 2021. Can you guys believe it's December? Like, I cannot. Like, it's like been a wild ride, right?
Yeah.
Wild ride. So before we hop into some questions, why don't you share with us why this is something that is so dear to your heart and why you talk about it often? It's a very important topic.
Thank you for having me again.
I love you.
And thank you for just giving space to this topic. We're not going to talk about design strategies. We're not going to talk necessarily about pricing. We can talk about those things, but I think that just when we initially had our conversation about Mayesh Design Star and deciding on the topics that I was going to tackle, this was an easy one for us all, you three, me and Allie and you, to say, this is an obvious one because this is something I talk about all the time. This is what I'm super passionate about, in addition to great floral fundamentals and the things I teach my students, but also just a part of just why I do what I do and why I'm even in the floral industry, and all of this is so connected. So I really appreciate just the space to have some time to talk about this and to share with your audience. And it's really meaningful for me to get to share my story, and it's also really vulnerable, which we're going to get into it. So
it is. I almost started crying when I just mentioned my daughter because it's been so emotional. So I might cry, just letting you all know.
That's okay. This is a safe space. I was applying mascara, so I didn't look like a total, sea witch today. And I was putting some mascara on, and I thought maybe I shouldn't bother, because as I was even just putting it on, I thought I feel emotional just thinking about some of the questions you sent me before our call of how I got here, why this topic, why even go there? Isn't just flowers, just do your job, whatever. And there's some real heart and soul, but also some really tender places when we talk about this topic. So the first thing I just want to say is I am not a mental health professional. I do not have any training in this. Please do not take this as professional or medical advice. Please go see a professional if you are struggling. This is really just for entertainment purposes, but also, for educational, informational purposes, to share my story. And any advice I give or anything like that, just take with a grain of salt, because each one of us has a very specific story for why we're struggling with certain things. And, I do not impart any kind of professional skill or knowledge around that. So take what I say with a grain of salt, please. But with that said, the reason that this matters so much to me is that as a classically trained florist, I had accomplished a lot in my work with flowers. Even at a young age, I was living in California. There was a lot of opportunity there for me, and I kind of hit all these benchmarks really early on. And many years into my business, and we'll talk more about some of the questions that you had and some of the more of the story, but the gist of it, the really quick 1 minute piece of this is that despite what I have accomplished in my floral career, I never felt good enough. And I never felt like, I pretty much always felt like an imposter. And I always felt like one day someone's going to find me out and I'm going to get kicked out of floristry. And, this kind of perfectionism, but also just a lot of fear-based decision making with clients, overstuffing orders, over committing to things, overworking my body. A lot of this kind of panic that lived inside of me to perform, to be accepted, to make sure that people were happy with me. In addition to my own journey, right, of just the constant crippling self-doubt that I experienced at every turn. Should I buy this flower or this flower? Do I charge 100 or 200? I mean, every corner I turned in my business, in my personal life, I just felt a lot of anxiety and fear around, am I enough? Is what I do enough? And this kind of anxiety, this kind of chronic self-doubt, imposter syndrome, there's lots of words we use to talk about this, really became crippling for me in my business. I had stagnation in financially with what I was charging. I didn't feel like I could charge that much. I didn't feel like I could make those designs that other people were making. I didn't think I could go for those clients or do this kind of styling, right? It just always were these limiting beliefs around who I was and what I was allowed to do and what I was allowed to charge and how I was allowed to show up in my business. And this just held me back for years. It held me back financially. It held me back from growing as a designer. It held me back personally in relationships. And this all just led to just so many problems. And it's not that we turn a switch and everything's fine now. We'll talk about more of that story later. But I recognized this when I started teaching about 4.5 years ago, when I really started teaching. I mean, I've been training designers most of my career because I tend to have a lot of, if I work in a shop, people are like, oh, Amy's good at that. Like, send them to Amy. Or in my own business, I pretty much always had to train everybody from the ground up. I've been training people for a long time, but when I started really teaching and traveling around the country and teaching, I told a little bit of my story in the beginning of every workshop. I'd say, hey, just so we're level set here, if you're nervous about being here at this workshop, I understand. And I want to let you know this is a safe place, but also if you're doubting your legitimacy to even be here, I just want you to know that you're allowed to be here and you're allowed to invest in yourself and learn these skills. And even if you've been doing this 30 years, thank you for being here. Thank you for investing and growing. And, we are always in that process. And so as I would share my story with florists around the country, just, even 10 minutes or 20 minutes, I'd see tears in people's eyes and I would get hugs at the end. And it was like, florists would just pour their heart out to me about gratitude for thanking me for sharing, but then sharing back with me their own journey with crippling self-doubt, imposter syndrome. And we're talking about successful designers, not just newbies. So I saw a pattern everywhere I went that, we're creatives. And I've shared about this many times on different podcasts. I know we've talked about it on your podcast, but this idea that when you're creating something, it's a vulnerable place. It's a vulnerable place to do that. It's a vulnerable thing to make something and put it in the world and say, did this hit the mark? Did this meet the mark for whomever, even for my own standards? So I found that I was not only not alone, I found that this was the majority of people that I connected with. And it just became, I think, a trademark that the beginning of every workshop I spend an hour doing introductions and sharing my story and talking through some of the stuff we're going to talk about today around how I shifted out of this really destructive self-talk place, and that it's not over, right? We live with these wounds, we live with these stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves, and this process of releasing that and giving ourselves permission to tell new stories, to actually heal from some of these things, and to shift what we believe is not only possible, but is a lifelong process and is a daily process, sometimes hourly, sometimes by minute, right? There's
Right.
no quick book we read and then we're like all healed, right? I don't know that many people who don't struggle with this. So I think it's critical to talk about, at least in what I teach, because I think I've shared this with you before, Yvonne, but I can teach somebody all the techniques in the world. But if the entire time, not all of them, I teach what I teach, but you know what I mean? We
Right.
can spend all day talking about design. But if all day long, the whole time when working with them on their bouquet work, they're saying, I'm garbage, I'm no good at bouquets. Why am I even bothering wasting my time and money on trying to learn this new thing? I'm never gonna get it, right? Who do I think I am for even trying this? Right? These are the things that I say to myself, used to say daily, daily. And I was a professional, successful designer and knew what I was doing, but yet these stories came up for me all the time around my work with flowers. And we'll talk more about this. But this is really the heart of why I care about this. This is why I want to talk about it. This is why I continue to talk about it, is that I know I'm not alone. And secondly, I think improving your design, improving your business has to start with the stories you tell about why you're even doing it.
Right.
And you can buy the best coaching, you can buy all the fancy online courses that exist, and still derail yourself if the whole time, and as you move forward with business goals or your design goals, you're thinking that you're a piece of garbage and nobody will ever hire you and you'll never get better at what you're doing, right? So there's a strong connection here. Not only is that anecdotally from my own experience, but what I've witnessed in my own students and people I've worked with and coached. So I think that it has to start here for me. It really is not just a side piece. It's critical. And I certainly don't guide people through, therapy. I encourage people to find good therapists that they trust, particularly trauma-informed therapists, that can help guide us into places of healing, whether it's through therapy or books or whatever meditation or whatever practice you do. But I just want to start the conversation. And from a floral design perspective in a workshop, it's like, why are you talking about this, feely stuff? And
Right.
that's the reason why, is that it's not only a deep part of my own journey, but I want to create safe places for people to work through their self-doubt while they're learning something new. And so, yeah, that's how we got here. That's a really short version. Long answer.
No, I think that's great. And honestly, so someone watched your video yesterday and we had some really nice comments, but one of them in particular stood out. And she said, "This is so perfect for me today. After 18 years of floral design, working in shops for a while and doing weddings on the side, having 4 babies, I finally set up a business yesterday."
Yeah.
So many nagging feelings along the excitement of actually taking myself seriously after all these years. Thank you for this. And yeah, right?
Awesome.
I
Yeah,
love that.
love
and
it.
and I feel like, obviously, and we don't need to get into this because, we'll probably all be crying and things like that. But I feel like, especially like watching my own daughter who's 12 years old, she has like major anxiety, has self-doubt, like talks negatively to herself all the time. And so I'm imagining that like carries through, right?
Yes.
So just trying to figure that out.
Yeah. And Yvonne, the very fact that she has a mother who is moved to tears over her pain, over her struggle, is what I think so many of us would have longed for, is to just be seen, to have that just be acknowledged, to just say, gosh, honey, you certainly cannot fix that, right? but to be a safe space for her, to be able to be a reflection of what's true about her is powerful, and I think can't be diminished, because we raise our kids in a world that we know is is going to be rough on their mental and emotional health.
Right.
And there's only so much we can do to protect them from that. But my favorite parenting author, Janet Lansbury, who mostly writes about younger children, but it literally just completely changed my life and how I parent from a place of compassion, empathy, respect. When I was not that way originally. Not a very happy parent. Hi, Susan, friend.
Parenting is hard. But
It's hard. It's so hard. And I see you in that. And I really just want to encourage you that your compassion, your understanding, your curiosity, and that you don't you not only do you not know how to fix it, you can't fix it. There's no fixing. That journey is hers alone. And the most powerful thing that we can do for each other is to sit with each other in our grief and suffering and pain and say, I see you. This is safe. I'm not going to try to fix you. I'm just going to be present with you in the pain of your anxiety, of your fear, and your whatever that looks like. And of course, there's so many strategies that professionals can do, and there might be some dysregulation there with the nervous system, right?
Right.
These things, this was a big piece of the puzzle for me, was getting back into my body. I had a lot of trauma as a child, and even if you don't have trauma, I mean, we're just in a traumatic world that dysregulates our nervous system all the time. And I was under the care of this therapist, and she said to me right out the gate, I mean, she broke me down so fast. It was like, whoo, I guess this is what I'm paying for. She said to me, you are not in your body. You are all in your head. And it's probably why your body is suffering. I had all these conditions, all these pain and weird, all of a sudden I developed this weird autoimmune, it's just like your body's screaming, Amy. And one of the most powerful things she taught me was, as a trauma-informed therapist, was how to get back into my body. And I teach this to students in the workshop. We do a breathing exercise. We do tapping. To just bring awareness, to just level set. And I've taught my 8-year-old how to do this. When I see that he is dysregulated, we focus on breathing, and we focus on tapping, and we talk about what's true. You're safe, you're here, you're loved. It's amazing that those really small things as a parent, even to ourselves, can shift and reform our nervous system, then rewires our brain around safety, around that fight or flight response that a lot of us are living in with social media, with news, with the chaos of our world, with chemicals. I mean, there's so many reasons why our nervous system is taxed. And for you to parent, for us to really, and I think this ties into the conversation at large, there is a process of reparenting. If you've never heard that word, I highly recommend you read about it, because reparenting ourselves allows me to check in with myself like I'm the 8-year-old, right? I'm a parent to an 8-year-old. I check in on him. Okay, you seem really upset right now, right? And just mirroring his experience instead of saying, well, why are you upset? Well, you shouldn't be upset, and casting judgment on his feelings. I just sit with the discomfort that I can't fix it, but I'm here. I'm physically here. I'm doing that for myself all the time. And we're jumping to the solution here, but I think that we might as well get into the hope, right?
Right.
The hope is that the hopeful part, the other side of this, is that I am not a victim. I might have been victimized, but I am not a victim right now in this moment. I can choose to reparent myself and to take over as grown-up Amy, right? And if your listeners are like, this is too woo-woo, I ask you to stay, right? I ask you to stay with the discomfort of why this might be uncomfortable, to have a conversation about this. Because the reality is we're all walking around with 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 12-year-old versions of ourselves. And to be able to sit with the discomfort of my 7-year-old self that had really messy hair and would get mocked and bullied about it. And to this day, to wear my hair curly is an act of like healing for me, if I'm honest. That might sound crazy, But for so long, I just straightened my hair because I was so afraid of being criticized like I was as a young child. And, you know, you don't have hair product at 7. Nobody was doing
No.
my hair. It was just chaos, really. And I have
I
all
look
the
like a
receipts.
dog, so
Yeah.
my mom gave me like a really lovely bangs and
Oh yeah, it's just,
yeah.
it's just a dreadful time in your beauty regime. There's lots of unfortunate photos. But, the reality is it's like making peace with myself to say, you know what? I am going to take care of 7-year-old Amy. How this translates in a very practical way is something like this with ourselves in our work with flowers. We decide to make something new, right? We try a new style. I was just in a Floral Facebook group the other day, and this 40-year veteran had to make this kind of U-shaped style, right? And she was posting a photo on it and said, "This was harder than it looks. I'm used to making, very traditional styles." And a couple of florists chimed in and they said, "Oh, I hate this style. I hope it ends soon, and I hope it goes away." And she very wisely said, it was tough. And it may not be my favorite thing, but I'm open to learning. I'm open. The client brought me a photo and I made this, and you could tell, she was just a little unsure of herself. I think it was just kind of like, did I get this right? And I so appreciated her vulnerability in this group because what I witnessed was a real act of bravery, right? She never had to post that. She could have made it and shoved it aside and put it out. And this is a group of a lot of traditional florists. And I was so inspired that she took action, that she pressed into the uncomfortable things. And I don't know what went on in her head, but here's a conversation I hear in my own mind. And this is what I hear from a lot of florists. Who do I think I am to do this? I'm not any good at this. I'm never going to be good at this. And you know what? Nobody's going to actually like this. In fact, I'm just going to quit floristry. It's like it just keeps traveling on and on because I'd rather just protect myself from the pain of rejection than actually do something brave, right? And courageous and step outside that comfort zone and try something different and try something new. Try a new ingredient, try a new color story, right? Try a new client, right? Try a new pricing model, right? Put on a new website. It's these all, doing flowers, running a business requires these great acts of bravery, in my opinion. I mean, it's very safe to work for somebody else. And I did. I worked in corporate. I've done the 9 to 5. It's very safe. You show up, you have a job, you get a paycheck, and you take some risk here and there. But when it's all on you and it's creative work you're doing, it is absolutely terrifying to continue to put yourself out and hope and pray that it's enough, that people like it, that you feel like it's enough. And this kind of constant challenging of yourself and your ego and your worth, these questions come up all the time. And so what do you do, right? How do you not be crippled by this? How do you not just be flattened by the fear and the overwhelm and the panic? And I think the answer, from a non-spiritual place, I think I have a very spiritual idea around how this works, but from a non-spiritual place, I think the answer really does lie with compassion, curiosity, and awareness. And what happened for me, and one of your questions, I'll answer one of your questions on the sheet, which is, when did this all start? When was the shift here? I was standing in my garage and I was making something, and for a party I was working on, and it was a challenging color palette, and I couldn't harmonize it right. Something just was off, and I was starting to feel Roberta, who I call my alter ego. She's an old friend I had who was really mean. And so I, named her Roberta. And this book I read said to do this. And it's been really powerful to kind of separate this inner critic from me, right? It kind of puts some space between us. And Roberta showed up and she took me down pretty hard. And I really, for the first time, heard her really loud and clear. Who do you think you are? Client's going to hate this. You're a failure. You can't even figure out color. I mean, how long have you been doing this, Amy? Come on. You're struggling, seriously. This kind of self-abuse, really. It's not even just like negative talk. This is abusive language. And I heard it and I just wept. I grieved. I felt so sad for not protecting myself from this inner critic, this hurtful stream of consciousness that had just been there, probably truly my whole life, and had been dictating and running the show, if I'm honest. And that really started the journey for me of learning how to see her with fresh eyes, to have firm boundaries with her, to say, whoop, not today. We're not doing that with you today, and to recognize that she was a part of me, but she didn't have to run the show, right? I didn't have to participate in this. I didn't have to allow her to take the wheel and run us off the cliff, right? Emotionally, mentally, physically, that
Right.
I was in control. And this was a part of reparenting. This is a part of healing. All of this is connected. But I still hear her come up. I still hear her come up when I'm launching something new, when I'm trying something. I was at a conference just a few short years ago, and I'd been teaching about a year and a half, and I spoke to this man, who's a wholesaler. It was not Mayesh. You have been nothing but supportive of me over the years, by the way. But this man owns a wholesale company, and I came by his booth and was chatting with him, and I met him a couple different times, and he asked, oh, so how's it going? What are you doing? I said, oh, I'm teaching full time now. I got really busy. I'm traveling here. I'm doing this. And he laughed in my face and said, we don't need any more teachers. You should go back to designing.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Oh my gosh.
I was so it doesn't surprise me, because I think there's just a lot of chauvinism. There's a lot of, I look very young for my age. I think people are often surprised that I've been doing this for 2 decades. I think, I know that I'm not always taken seriously especially with men. And I think that, that's also been a huge trigger for me, is I want to be taken seriously. I want to be seen as a professional. I mean, I strive it almost to a, destructive place to be, to know what I know and to invest in myself. And it's almost an obsession, not always healthy. And this was my greatest fear, for somebody to mock me, for somebody to treat me like I was very small, insignificant, and, to basically invalidate this new journey I was on, this new path of sharing my years and years and years and years of experience. And I just thought, oh my God, he's right. Who do I think I am? I mean, immediately it was Roberta showed up with her sledgehammer and said, I told you. Somebody else just validated your biggest fear. And how this plays out, I think, in wedding work, in client work, oftentimes is, we allow ourselves to get pushed around with budget. We allow ourselves to get pushed around with boundaries, because we're afraid. We're afraid that we're going to be exposed. We're afraid that we're not going to perform. We're afraid we won't get a referral. We're afraid that we can charge that and they'll say yes. And we were afraid of our employees sometimes, of our freelancers. We don't have boundaries with our teams. And so they run the show and they're walking all over each other and it becomes a mess, right? We don't have contracts. We're afraid to have a contract. It's like, this bleeds into everything. And it took me months to recover from what that guy said, because that kind of stuff is sticky. You talk to people about art trauma and they're like, yeah, that one time in art class, Mary said I wasn't good at drawing and now I won't touch a pencil, right? It's like this kind of story gets formed and solidified, and then we take it and we say, yep, that was true. How dare I try to teach people? How dare I try to train others and help others and try to do, how dare I should just go back to my hole and shut up and keep doing what, like that type of belief system. I mean, I just grabbed it and I thought he saw right through me. How dare I? And it took me a couple months, honestly, to recalibrate. And he really threw me. And I think that the power that this man had, in my opinion, was a lot like my dad. My dad is a tall, very strong personality, would say, says things. He's very bright. He's, really capable. And, I look up to him, and thankfully I have a really supportive dad who's very proud of me and very, very encouraging. But if my dad said to me, are you kidding me, Amy? What a joke. You're trying to teach people. I mean, I wouldn't even be here. It would probably have just ended me, to be honest.
Right.
So I think there's this patterning. I think, I'm looking for this approval. I'm looking for this kind of aha, yay, go Amy. Instead, I have to give that to myself. I have to say in those moments when someone says something to me, wow, that has absolutely nothing to do with me. And that has everything to do with them. That's easier said than done. And the inner work of saying, why does this hurt so much? Why is this so painful? Why did this derail me? Right? Curiosity. It's like, instead of judging myself for feeling the pain of that, saying, that really hurt me. And I wonder why. I'm just going to sit with the curiosity of why that hurt so much. And I may not even get to a resolution, but I'm just honoring the fact that it was painful, instead of minimizing it, instead of saying, well, everyone has their right and screw him, instead of going there, I focus on taking care of myself. Wow, that was really painful and that hurts a lot, and I don't exactly know why, but I'm really curious about why that felt so sticky, why that stuck to me so much. And then, compassion, immediate compassion. Oh, I'm going to take care of you. I know what you're trying to do. I know who you're trying to help. I know what you're trying to create, and I'm going to help you get there. Like, literally talking to myself, right? And this happens regularly, right? Like, regularly I have to do this rewiring and this pausing of saying, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, that felt really uncomfortable, and that's interesting. I wonder if it's because I'm unfamiliar with this, right? I had this with Instagram Reels the other day. I told Sue, I don't know if Sue McCleary is still here, but we were texting, I wrote her, and I said, I just made a reel and it took me 2 hours, and the file got corrupted, and I just had a full meltdown, like internal meltdown of like, I give up. I am not 20 years old. Like, I can't get this.
Just so you know, Instagram's been having a lot of issues.
Okay,
so
thank God.
yes, it's not you, and I don't want to interrupt your important story,
No,
but I was so excited to do an Instagram reel on my Christmas tree. So the whole bomb thing, and like you click and you throw the ornament, and and that's not something you can like redo once your tree is up, right? So I did the thing, and then I went to go finish, and it was gone. I was so upset. At least it wasn't for work though, because then I probably would have been crying. Like, I just spent all this time trying to like film 2 seconds, and now it's gone.
Literally, and I think that's I think a lot of us can relate. If you're on this call and you're struggling through Instagram Reels, we see you and your pain, because, we know that Instagram is moving to more video, and I want to be able to create more, cool, interesting, compelling content that's educational, entertaining. And it's a struggle. I mean, I'm in the weeds trying to figure it out, and it's not easy. And the story, right, that's coming up is, you've aged out.
Yep.
You can't compete. You're not going to figure this out. It's too technical for you, Amy. It's too technical. I'm sorry. You're just not smart enough. And, you have to do it on your own. You've got to figure this out, right? Here's the reframe. And I think this reframing is really powerful. And this is not bypassing. This is not toxic positivity. I think those things are really damaging. And I really think that's an important distinction here, is that it's, just see the bright side, and everything's chummy, and just turn that frown upside down. And what's the silver lining? I think it's very different from intentional reframing. This is the process for me. I feel the thing after the 2-hour reel. I literally almost had a nervous breakdown over. Wow, I am really frustrated. This feels really hard, and I don't feel capable or competent or smart enough to figure this out. That's what's really happening for me. And honoring and acknowledging that those feelings are valid, and that I'm not going to shame myself for feeling them. Like, I'm allowed to feel frustrated and have self-doubt, and I don't need to be like happy, positive all the time. I'm like, I could literally burn my phone right now. So I'm like owning and accepting my human experience, that this is really hard. And I'm sitting with the discomfort that I don't feel capable of fixing this or figuring it out. Then it's the reparenting steps in. What do you need right now? What I needed was to get off my phone in that moment. I had been on it for hours, fussing with some stuff. And what I needed was to not push through. It was to put my phone in a timeout and go snuggle my son and go make a cup of coffee, and to sit out and look out my window and remember that the whole reason that I do what I do is to hopefully help other people do their work better. And I'm here having a full-blown meltdown because the pathway to get there isn't working right. And so, reframing, creating some perspective around that, not just, oh, gum up, friend, everything's fine, right? To sit with the discomfort, to take care of myself in that moment, which was to pause and separate myself from this. And the other piece of that was, hey, Amy, you're a grown-up 39-year-old. And a business owner. What do you do? What do you do when you need help? You get help. You learn, you buy a course, you ask a friend, you reach out, you hire someone, right? You are a capable, functioning 39-year-old. You are not 7 who has no resources and no power, right? You're not her. You're big Amy here. And that's what I did. I reached out to a friend, Sue. we commiserated of our mutual reels pain. And then, I got help. I bought a course. I hired a 20-something-year-old to help me with some tech stuff. I reached out to someone else about helping me with video editing. I mean, I empowered myself, and I get weary with that word because I think it's heavily overused. But I empowered myself to say, hey, friend, hey, little Amy, we're going to take care of this. We're going to learn. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. But this is something I want to do. I'm not forcing myself. This is something I actually want to learn. But the story has to be fixed around how dare you try, what a fool, what a mess, right? That has to be dealt with. Because that's the stuff that just eats away at us, right? And then it spills out of me onto my child, onto my husband, onto my friends, onto the people around me, where that spills out on touches them, right? So part of being a grown-up, part of working through the discomfort of all of this is facing it, sitting with all of the discomfort that I don't know how to do this yet, but I know that I'm a capable person that can find help and answers. But again, that's the reparenting, right? And so the reframe for this is, here's the reframe. This is really the crux of what has helped me heal over a lot of years of crippling self-doubt, is not just toxic positivity. Here's a way that it looks for me. I hear Roberta show up. She's got her, her Doc Martens on. She's ready to kick my butt. She is ready, right, to beat me down. And I'm hearing her, right, in full, loud audio. And I show up with compassion and curiosity around why she's there. Oh, I had a tough call with a client. I had a hard time making that real. I had this going on with the flower project, right? I lost that job. I didn't book it, right? Somebody else booked it. What's the discomfort? What's the uncomfortable piece? And then the reframe, right? Wow, I am so proud of you for taking a moment to acknowledge why this hurts. This is what I'm saying to myself. I am so proud of you for doing something new. I am so proud of you for showing up in courage, in trying something that you fumbled around in, right? Wow, look at you go. Look at how far you've come. Could you have done that 2 years ago? I mean, look at the growth you've put. I'm so proud of you for investing. I'm so proud of you for reaching out and asking for help. I'm so proud of you for betting on yourself and investing in good coaching and good help and good employees. This kind of, it might sound silly to somebody who's not, who's like, oh, that's so weird. This was life-changing for me. I mean, absolutely.
I'm connecting to everything.
Well, yes. I mean,
yes. So many others are too, just so you know, Amy.
I hope so. I mean, my hope and prayer in the beginning of this call is that the point of sharing my story is not, to elevate myself and to make some sort of grandstand here. My hope is to connect that with others that in the creative community, specifically in floristry, because obviously that's our work in our world, is that not only are you not alone, but this is not a hopeless end to the plight of the artist who's struggling. There is healing available for all of us. And it takes, I think, a lot of courage to face these stories. I think it takes a lot of courage to show up, to work with a good therapist, to reach out to a friend and say, I'm really struggling. It takes courage to book a coach, a business coach, and say, I need guidance. I need support. I need accountability. These things take courage because, you know, a lot of us were trained as children that you don't ask for help, you don't show emotion, you don't show weakness, you buck up, you put on a strong face. That stuff's for sissies, right? And you power through. You get it done, you know, stop your tears, stop your fussing, your whining, right? You get it
Right.
done. And so I think I didn't have parents like that. I actually had fairly emotionally aware parents that were not uncomfortable with tears because I was a very tearful child, if you can tell. A lot of emotion, a lot of big emotion. But, you know,
I'm not emotional at
yeah.
all, if you could tell.
And that's okay too, right? It takes all kinds. But I think
Totally
that,
kidding.
right?
Yeah.
Well, and some people, you know, some people are just in different places in their healing
Right.
journey. Some people are
Mhm.
not ready and they're not interested in going there. It's too painful, it's too deep, it feels like death to sit in these uncomfortable feelings, to even begin, probably to maybe even listen to this conversation is deeply uncomfortable. And I honor that. I have been at this for 20 years. I got into a form of recovery at 19 years old. I have been talking about the work and the mental and emotional health work for 20 years. And I am very comfortable doing that. And I know that not everybody is. And that's totally okay, obviously. But I think that, again, as this ties into my work with flowers, our work with flowers, as creatives, you know, we're working with clients on a client brief. You know, oftentimes in the service-based industry, you know, we get a brief and it says, hey, I want you to make this thing in all pink, right? And then we have to funnel that through our mind and hands and heart and ideas and create something in all pink. And this is cause for, there are lots of opportunity for self-doubt. There are lots of opportunity for self-criticism and imposter syndrome and all these things. And I think a lot of this is just, you know, we're really just needing to reconnect with ourselves. And there is a link I will share with you that you can share with your listeners that was really helpful to me on tapping. It's just on YouTube. You can also just look up tapping on YouTube. There's many, many videos. This is so powerful. And part of why this is powerful is there's only so much cognitive work we can do. There's only so much we can tell ourselves. But when our nervous system is dysregulated, it's very difficult to shift. And we're stuck. We often just get stuck in this pattern, this cycling pattern of self-hate, self-critique. And what was so life-changing for me is sitting in my body to recognize it. And I'll give you an example here of how this works. So I am in the car. I drive crazy. I grew up in California. I am kind of a crazy driver. And I will say I'm probably a bit of an aggressive driver. And you have to survive in Southern California.
Yeah.
And I'm driving around the other day. This is kind of shortly after I learned this tapping technique. And this guy cuts me off really bad. The drivers in DC I've lived in a lot of states, and it's like nothing I've ever seen. People just, you know, they do not care about. Most drivers just really don't seem to care. This guy
It's like
cuts me
that
off.
in South Florida too. I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like
I
I
mean, I
almost
think it's
die
everywhere.
every time I go out. Like
I'm
I
so
have to
sorry.
be paying attention to everyone and
Yes,
like
very
honk at
sensitive.
them so they don't run into me. My horn is like my favorite thing.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate. And, I would say that I'm a fairly courteous driver, but I really, really sticks to me when somebody is just super rude on the car. I'm just like, children in the car. It just enrages me. And this guy cuts me off so bad one day. I mean, just so bad. It was so obvious what he was doing. He looked me right in the eye. It was just really aggressive. And I literally just hit the roof of my car. I mean, not literally, emotionally hit the roof of my car. I felt such a level of rage that felt disproportionate to what had actually happened. It's not like he got out and, shot my dog. It's like, I don't have a dog, but, if I had a dog, it
Right.
felt this disproportionate amount of response to this. Could feel my whole body just well up with anger. And I'm sitting in a car, and I had been working with this therapist, and immediately I was able to see it. And I thought, wow. And I said this out loud to myself. If anybody was looking at that, wow, that woman's crazy. She's talking to herself. And I said, wow, you are really upset right now. Wow, Amy, you are really upset. And just acknowledging how upset I felt to myself started to calm me down. then I started to go through this practice. This is really interesting. Instead of, yeah, mother effing, and dropping every 4-letter word, which is what I wanted to do,
Right.
I literally just immediately reframed and thought, well, this is interesting. Why am I so upset? Like, this is not just this guy cut me off. I'm raging. And immediately I felt this shift inside me that was all of a sudden now introspective. It wasn't on him, it was on me of, wow, this is interesting. This huge emotion you had about this. Huh, wow, what's going on? And I realized that I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel seen. I felt disregarded, which is a huge trigger for most of us, but apparently it's a
Right.
huge trigger for me. And this goes way back to childhood, way all the way back, right? And some people don't really need to be seen. They're fine hiding. And apparently this is a trigger for me, to feel seen, to feel acknowledged. And I felt super disrespected. It clearly brought up a lot. And in that moment, I took a really deep belly breath and I said to myself, where do I feel this in my body? Well, I felt it right in my stomach. I tend to have a ton of digestive problems. Super shocking. And I put my hand on my stomach, just really high. And I took a big deep breath and I said, you are safe. You are safe. And I see you. That was really rude and hurtful. And I felt immediately better. Not only did my anger dissipate, I felt compassion for him. I thought, wow, I wonder where he needs to go, that he feels so stressed out to have endangered me and almost wrecked his car and my car, to have gotten there. Like, what is this poor guy? I mean, I moved from anger to compassion in, under 60 seconds, which I think is remarkable. And it, it's totally free.
It
And
is
I think
remarkable.
it's remarkable. And I think that, even yesterday I was driving home, I had a really painful dental procedure and I was, crabby and lacking sleep and just grouchy and sitting in traffic. And I was talking to a friend on the phone and I started complaining and I said, right in the moment of my complaint, I said, gosh, I'm so grateful I have the resources to pay for my dental work.
Right.
I'm so grateful I have a car that gets me to my errands. And I'm so grateful I have money to put gas in it, especially right now. And I'm so grateful that I have, medicine when I get home and ice to make it feel better. Like, it's not about not experiencing the difficulty. It's about how long I'm going to choose to sit in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what real empowerment looks like. It's not this cushy tagline on an Instagram post. It's not this kind of, platitude. And it's not bypassing. It's saying, I don't feel good about this. And that's uncomfortable. But gosh, am I grateful that I get to do flowers every day. Gosh, I'm so grateful that I get to work with designers, that I get to live my dream of helping people with their design work, of getting to be home with my son and choose my schedule and be able to take on as much or as little as work as I need or want. Wow, how crazy is that I get to do that? And, I think that reframe has changed my life. It's allowed me to have boundaries with myself, with my clients, with projects I'm working on. It's allowed me to make more money because I'm able to actually calculate how much of my time is worth certain projects and assign them appropriately. It's allowed me to grow and scale my business because I hire people, bookkeepers and accountants and CMOs and COOs and consultants and coaches and advisors and everybody who helps me do what I do. I invest in those things. I spend a lot of money on helping myself be the best that I can be for my clients and run the most healthy business I can run, not just financially, but emotionally and physically. And there's no such thing as this perfect balance. There's a process in place of realigning myself with what's true, with taking care of myself emotionally and physically, slowing down. I mean, I encourage wedding florists to build cost into taking care of their mind and body. I really do. If you need to charge $100 extra on a wedding so that you can go get a full body massage after a wedding, I did that for many years when I ran my wedding business. I built it into the cost, your therapy, right?
Right.
Build it in, because this is the only way we show up, is with our bodies in floristry. We don't do it from behind a computer. We have to use our body to do our job. So how, make your business plan, set up your marketing strategy for next year, get your people on the email list, do the things, right? Make the relationships with the wholesalers. But what's your plan for taking care of your mental health? What is your plan for taking care of your physical health? What are you going to do? How are you going to work your plan? How are you going to strategize a plan to take care of your self-talk? Start now in the off season, read the book, buy the course, get the coach, do the thing to work on this, because it's not just going to unlock a tremendous amount of potential, I believe, in your business, but it changes us as people. It makes us more compassionate bosses. It makes us more reasonable with our clients and in what our expectations of them are and what they expect of us, and helps us set boundaries, really healthy boundaries around our work. And this has been transformative in really every part of my life. And as a parent, and as somebody now who manages other people on my team who help me do what I do, I have to work on this all the time. Wow, that's a really uncomfortable conversation I had to have with that person right now. I wonder why I feel so icky about this, right? I probably need to take some time and think about this. And this kind of shifting and internal work is tiring. And I think I'm not always grinding this out. There are times where I don't want to deal with it. And I just will watch my Netflix show and eat my chocolate and truffle and, doom scroll for 12 hours, because that sometimes makes me feel better and a lot of times makes me feel worse. But, whatever I need to do to take care of myself is what's important. And it's not just today, it's every day. And then that care of myself bleeds out onto others. That care of myself transfers to how I parent. I'm not constantly dysregulated, so I'm not snapping at my kid every time they make a mistake, right? I am stable enough to sit with the discomfort of his mistakes or his resistance and say, well, that's uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable. It changes, it rewires how I show up in the world, how I operate, how I navigate. And I most certainly am not doing this perfectly, consistently, but I'm trying. And I think that shift is what's made all the difference in my work. It helps me realign with my values. It helps me realign with when criticism comes up, when that wholesale voice comes back that says, who are you? There's plenty of people teaching. Sit down. You don't need to throw your hat in this. And it helps me recalibrate why I bother showing up, why I bother taking risks, why I bother doing this or that. And so this is such an important piece of the puzzle. And I think that my encouragement to your listeners, my encouragement to myself, to you as you navigate, your daughter and parenting, is really about being able to approach ourselves with compassion and to approach ourselves with, gosh, what do I really need? And even if we just start there, even if we just start with that one question, gosh, what do I need? What do I really need? And can I allow myself to explore what that would look like? Whether it's getting help, whether it's saying no to events or weddings that we don't want or that we can't take. How can I take care of myself? And these are the important things that we do when we talk about sustainability. We're not just talking about environmental. We're talking about, I think, an important piece of talking about sustainability is, are we sustainable? Can we keep showing up in whatever we do in a sustainable way? And if we can't, I think that requires reevaluating, because there is no project worth destroying our mental, emotional, physical health over. I don't think there's any work worthy of destroying ourselves for. I think we're made to work. And I think work is such it's a privilege to work, but I also think it's hugely spiritual. I think there's so much purpose in our work, and it's not this trivial thing. And so if my work is destroying me, I think that really is cause and pause for reevaluation. And we're running out of time here, but I hope that this message is an encouragement, not just that you're not alone, not just that there's hope, not that just, we're all in process here, but that this is really, we're heading into another really intense year next year of flower shortages, labor shortages, supply chain issues, which I think we're all sick of hearing that word, but it's going to continue to be a word for all of us.
It's going to continue. I literally just got off the phone with our CEO yesterday, and he was talking about like how farms can't even get boxes to ship their flowers. Like it's fertilizer, like the little things that we take for granted, like a box. So yeah, it's not going away, guys. So we have to definitely, take care of each other. Take care of yourselves.
Yeah. And have a plan, have a plan to diversify where you source things, where you get labor. I think we have to be scrappier than ever. I did an Instagram live about this the other day where I talked about, we have to get really flexible if you're not there already. I think flexibility is the name of the game for professional florists. But if, we're being stretched even further than we ever have had to be in a lot of places. I know this is more regional. Some places aren't as bad as others, but this is going to be the name of the game. And I think we are on another year that's going to push and pull us in ways that can easily break us. And, I myself am spending December reevaluating my travel schedule, reevaluating how many courses I want to make, or how much I want to travel, how many workshops I want to do, how many projects I want to do, collaborations. It's like I have to this is a quarterly thing for me, if not monthly, but kind of quarterly. Was one of the questions you had sent me was, how do you plan? How do you do this? And I think this is we must take the time to reevaluate. If your books are maxed out, have a conversation with your bookkeeper and your accountant. If you don't have one, it's time to invest in one. And have a conversation with them about how much money you need to make. Because if you don't need to take former weddings next year, I wouldn't take them, right? If you can make what you need to make it, and don't give yourself the added trauma and stress of sourcing and labor shortages. Do the work you need to do to make what you need to make. But I think next year we have major red flags for burnout. We're already all burned out, and I think it could potentially be worse next year. So I hope that this is not too draining and stressful, but it is an encouragement that we can take that position in our business and in ourselves to take ownership, to do this internal work, and to lean into next year with more confidence and more care for ourselves than maybe any year before. So,
absolutely.
Lots of thoughts.
And I'll really, again, just the way you explain everything and the way you take everyone through the process that you use that works for you, I just think is just amazing. And I just want to thank you. It's just you say everything with intention, and everything with passion. And again, just being vulnerable and even allowing me to cry on TV. I warned you guys I was going to.
Tears are healing. Tears are healing. That's why they're made of salt.
Oh, I cry a ton. Yeah, I'm very emotional.
So
I'm an open
book. It's good for your nervous
system.
It's actually really healthy. It's so good for your nervous system. You literally shift your chemistry, right? There might be some scientists on here, but we shift our chemistry when we do that. I think they're so powerful. And I think that, I really have shifted, and I really don't apologize for my tears. I don't apologize for doing what I think is really like biologically necessary to release something. And there is healing. There is a reason that that there's salt in our tears. I just think there's something really cleansing about that. So I feel honored to have had this conversation with you, and we'll be thinking about you and your daughter, and know that you have everything you need as a mother, that it's not an accident you were chosen to be her mom. And I daily worry my parenting ability sometimes. And yet, I know that at the end of the day, that my emotional response to raising my son, that my own tears of, gosh, am I doing this well? Am I doing enough? That says a lot. It says a lot. And for you to hurt alongside with her and to be a safe place for her is, as a young woman myself, would have benefited greatly from that. So You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you, love.
You're welcome.
Oh my gosh, guys, what a heavy conversation.
Yeah.
I hope that it's helped at least one person. I'm sure I think a lot of people, like I said, are connecting with what you were saying, Amy, and I think this is great. Someone was saying, I love a good cry.
Yeah.
We all do, right?
Same.
You need to stay creative, balanced, find inspiration. Totally agree, guys. I didn't really get a chance to go through a lot of the comments. But I do appreciate them, and thank you just for being a part of the conversation. I was going to ask Amy, we were running out of time though. 3 tips for self-care for florists. So I have a link for Amy's blog that I'll put that in the show notes. So that way you guys can get it. Also include the link to the topping YouTube video that she mentioned as well. And I just hope everyone takes this and uses it however they see fit. And I'm just wrapping up 2021 and getting ready for 2022. I can't believe
we did it.
We did it. Oh my gosh, guys, we did it. So again, thank you, Amy. Thank you for just, again, wrapping up our 2022 season for Mayesh Design Star. You're amazing. You're inspiring. And we're just lucky to have you be a part of it. Guys, this isn't my last Mornings with Mayesh, though. I have one more scheduled with Ryan O'Neill from Curate, December 14th. That'll be my last show for the year. And we're going to be talking about pricing and some exciting new features that just launched on Curate too. So it should be a good show. It always is with Ryan. And maybe we can talk a little bit about planning for 2022 if you haven't already started. Hopefully you have, but we can help you if you haven't already. So awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have an amazing day, and I will see you all soon. Bye-bye. Bye, Amy.
Bye, everyone. Take care.